I want to talk to you about bad days. Now, this was put together a little bit before we've had some of the lessons we've had recently. So one of the things in there that's going through my mind is bad days are maybe a choice of how we choose to handle those. I'm sure Trevor, when he was on patrol, lots of people had bad days because they made choices. And he had to be the bearer of that bad news. But we're going to look at some examples of some things that were bad days. Do your days go as planned? Take a snow day, take a fog day. Worse, take a day at the ice this fell. Maybe the power's out. And you can see all your other neighbors have power. So what's wrong with mine? Thursday morning, GPS was telling me I had a 7 a.m. Dentist appointment in New Albany. It told me, you're on 33. Do you want to save 6 minutes? No, I'm good. Well, the 6 minute savings was over in New Albany. And when I got there, 161 was pretty much shut down. So it didn't ask me again, but it started rerouting me. Okay, I should have chose the 6 minutes, made the 6 minute choice back half hour ago, because then I would have gotten routed a little differently. But you will be interrupted in life. Life, nowhere are we told that life will be smooth sailing. Bad days require more prayer and a spiritual intensity to stay calm, to, quite honestly, just be Christ-like. Everybody knows the one time that Christ got upset. But he was upset of how they were treating the people, their actions. But those people made choices too. But we don't read of him getting upset with anybody else any other time. And he was upset with what they were doing, the choices they made. We learn lessons looking back at bad days. There's a song, and I haven't heard it in a while now, but it's something about what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. There's truth to that. Maybe not physically, but there's truth to that. Because character-wise, you get stronger. Now, you might start to ask the questions, why am I going through some of the things I'm going through? Oh, wait a minute. If I'm going through these things, then what is in my future that I have yet to deal with? God expects you walk with him, even in the valleys of the shadow of death. We've had, in the last year and a half, we've had a variety of lessons on Psalms 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of death. Well, I have a different perspective on what that valley of death is. That valley of death is not necessarily the physical death that we may easily think of, and that's locked into our brains as a child, of physical death, but it's all the trials and tribulations that we go through every single day. Maybe they're small, maybe they're huge, but they are valleys to some degree of tribulation. So let's take a look here at Goliath. Goliath. There's descriptions of his height. I think 9 foot is one of those descriptions. And the most we come in contact with are those who are 7 foot. And you just kind of keep looking up. Can you imagine 2 more feet? You would have to actually bend backwards. because your neck probably doesn't bend that way. So he is the ultimate warrior for the Philistines. And what was he to do? So King Saul, what was he to do with those Philistines? But then the Lord came with David, just a little guy. Oh, not only that, all he carried was a sling and some little stones. Can you imagine Goliath looking at him and saying, and we read of this, yeah, right. Oh, yeah, you go ahead, throw your stone. It's going to hit me here and it's going to bounce off. When the Philistine rose and came and drew near to meet David, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone and slung it. And it struck the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell on his face to the ground. Well, Goliath didn't know that his day didn't turn out the way he had planned because he wasn't alive. Then there's the woman who touched Jesus. Now, we all have heard this story. What's interesting is, depends on which version you read. I just looked up just a few moments ago, Mark 5:25, a New American says hemorrhaging. Hemorrhaging is a little bit different than what we think of as bleeding. But the bottom line is, both David and this lady had great faith. They believed in the Lord. She believed she just had to touch his garment. She didn't really need to have a conversation. For she said, if I touch even his garments, I will be made well. Well, there's another story. There's another account here. We focus a lot on separating Mark 5. We tear it apart. We kind of tend to separate the verses right before this. Jairus had a daughter who was dying. And the lady with the bleeding is kind of in the middle of that account. And Jairus was a Jew. And there's different, depends on which translation you read, you get a little bit different perspective. But basically, he was putting aside everything that he was a part of to say he believed Jesus could save his daughter. And he was trying to get him. And as Jesus stops and is tending to this woman, the little girl dies. And we tend to pluck this account right out of the middle of the other one. Well, what this does, though, this actually shows the power of Jesus. Jesus was able to tend to the lady. And then he continued on to Jairus' house. And it even said they laughed. And one account, one version says that Jesus got them all, except his three that were with him. And it depends on which way you read it, whether it was just the parents or the very immediate family. But everybody else, he gets out of the house. Because that's where the scoffers were, the laughers. Those who were making fun of, oh yeah, sure, we can bring it back from death. She's gone. They'd already had the mourners in there, some accounts say, or some of the commentaries and things say. Because that was the custom. But he speaks to the girl and she rises. Jesus dealt with a medical issue and he dealt with death. And they didn't matter. Jesus was able to deal with both. The girl had passed, and he reached across, as some today would say, death's door. Or she passed into the next room. He reached through the doorway and pulled her back. Nobody else was able to do that. Sometimes things happen in a way to prove points. And some comment that Jesus and the lady was to help show that he has power beyond death. He can save from death. He did it physically, but he was also here to save us from death spiritually. You will be interrupted in life. Jesus, the death of John the Baptist, Matthew 14. He lost a friend, a cousin, a soldier of God, a disciple. We don't need an image. We know what that looks like. Now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. We don't need any more words around that. We know what Jesus was doing because we know Jesus. Jesus was praying. Bad days require more prayer. And did my slides mess up? Nope. Was he able to find isolation? Was he able to be by himself? Not Jesus. Every time he tried to go off to pray, to be by himself, to meditate, didn't take very long and there was a crowd around him. Why? Yeah, regardless of what the I'm going to say Jewish hierarchy, all the leaders, and their cohorts were all spreading, I have to believe the people actually knew Jesus had powers. Maybe they didn't fully understand, but they knew he had powers. So anywhere he went, people gravitated to him. Wouldn't you? The crowds found him. Did he put them aside for time alone? Today there's a lot of discussion about, well, I need me time. I need alone time. I need quiet time. Don't you think Jesus needed that? Wanted that? He tried. We see lots of examples where he tried. But what did he do? He always tended to whomever it was. That's the servant part. That's the servitude. That's being there for somebody else, or somebody's, in his case mostly. It was usually a crowd. Being there for somebody else and serving. He served. I keep getting ahead of myself. So, we learn lessons looking back at bad days. History is important. Why learn? Why do we learn from history? Why should we learn from history? Because history tells us the things that didn't work. Did the Israelites learn in the Old Testament? Well, they learned one thing. They learned they could still try to do what they wanted to do. It seemed to be the only thing they were really good at. Because if you read very much, they time and time and time and time again repeated the same cycle. They typically went through, I'll pick up somewhere in the midst, they typically had about 70 years of peace. And I'm going to use my words, they got full of themselves and decided they knew better. Oh, we need a king. Oh, we need a judge. Oh, we need this. Oh, we need that. Well, wasn't very long, and the we needs suddenly had an idol in front of them. And God, being God, said, no, I'm the God, not these things. And he tried to change them, try to guide them away. Nope, they stayed glued to it. And they got further and further away from him. He would send in some conquering group, take your pick of names, because there's a lot of them. They'd take them away. They'd leave a remnant behind. I sometimes wonder if the remnant left behind weren't those ones that were obedient to God. But all the mass went off to captivity. They'd spend 70 plus years there. And then they would finally come to their senses a couple generations down the way, and they'd come back to God, and God would let them get freed, and then they'd go back, and we'd have some battles, and they'd be peace again for 70 years, and we just repeat the cycle. They never learned. How could we handle our situations differently? We have to pay attention to what's going on. We have to learn. And that's where the Bible's at. It's giving us those accounts of the Israelites and how they repeated and continued to cause themselves the same problems over and over. In Philippians 4:11-13, now, not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. That's hard. I know how to be brought low. I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Now, if you don't know who the guy with the receding hairline is on there, that's Einstein. Albert Einstein, he said, insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So pinch yourself till it hurts. You'll stop. And if you do it again, you didn't learn anything from the first time. God expects you to walk with him even in the valleys of the shadow of death. I'm going to read this. But I want you to think about something. Think about it a little differently, maybe. Think about all the trials and tribulations you may have on any one day or a week or a month or whatever. Some are having some medical issues going on in here, those in this room. That might be their valley right now that they're trying to get through and trying to navigate. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You notice in that bottom corner, that's a vulture watching over the traveler going down the road. Sometimes it seems like bad times are just watching and waiting. But in verse 4, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Prayer time. Regardless of what's going on in our lives, stop and take a moment and pray. When you could only see one set of footprints, that's when I carried you. It's not our footsteps in that sand. That's Jesus' footsteps carrying us through our trials and tribulations, through our bad days. There's a time for everything. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die. A time to plant, a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep, a time to laugh. A time to mourn, a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep, a time to cast away, a time to tear, a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love, a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. There's a time for everything. And we probably most likely don't want what it is that it's time for. Because it's probably not the things we favor. So Solomon already told us. Again I saw that under the sun the race is not to the swift, nor to the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all. You may see your neighbor have something that you wish you had time, money, whatever, to have. Maybe it's just time. Maybe it's that moment of peace where they're sitting on their back deck and they're easy in a recliner or a chair and they're just sitting there watching nature and everything's peaceful. It appears they're being peaceful. And we're busy scurrying about to try to get everything else done under the sun. But everything really is equal. We all have our time. Sometimes maybe we need to refocus, rethink, readjust. But there is a time for everything. And the trials and tribulations that we go through, they're there to help us, to strengthen us. Think about, as we leave here in a few minutes, what is it that we're dealing with? And pray about it. Now, God's not going to give us an answer necessarily on a screen in front of us or a revelation where the thought suddenly pops in your head. He had all the time he needed to take care of this lady, this woman, who had such faith that she only had to touch his garment. She didn't actually have to talk to him. And then he went on to Jairus. And he pulled the daughter back from the dead. There's a time for everything.